Hi, my name's Amanda Acuna, and I am a volunteer researcher in Cheryl Conrad's Behavioral Neuroscience Stress Laboratory. So my honors thesis used a preclinical model using rodents to really model major depressive disorder. And an important thing about major depressive disorder is that there's a number of different ways that it is expressed in different people. But importantly for what I was trying to do is that the hippocampus is smaller in people with MDD or major depressive disorder than people who don't have MDD. So you see this decrease in volume in the hippocampus. And that's really important because the hippocampus is involved in learning and memory and a lot of cognitive processes. And so we're trying to understand the neurobiological mechanisms that underlie that. These different behavioral expressions of a smaller hippocampus, and it's really important in the stress response. So people that have MDD just are more sensitive to stress, and so how does that kind of look, what does that look like in the brain? And so my project really changed this chronic restraint in order to produce effects in both males and females to be more inclusive and really look at, and then try to produce this preclinical model that really reflected the human condition.
Hi, my name is Maya Kirazosa, and I'm a part of the Arizona Twin Project Behavioral Genetics Lab. So ever since I've been involved with the lab since freshman year, I've worked on what we call our home visit team. And so we do the hands-on data collection. Prior to COVID, that actually involved making the trip out to the participants' homes, and then it shifted to a virtual Zoom call sort of format, but we do all the data collection for the lab. The title of my thesis was The Genetic and Environmental Contributions on the Relation Between Parenting and Child Psychopathology. And so what we did was we used the twin design because identical twins share 100% of their genes, and then fraternal twins share on average 50% of their genes. You can construct these models around those assumptions of the correlations between the twins that allow you then to build entire models for the whole population that'll estimate the genetic and environmental contributions on the trait you're looking at. So that's what we did. We did that first to look at three different psychopathology variables, which were internalizing, externalizing, and ADHD symptoms. And then we looked at two different parenting variables, which we defined as positive and negative parenting. There's a theory of called evocative gene-environment correlation, which is basically that certain traits, well, in our example, certain traits that a child possesses may actually evoke certain parenting responses, and you typically think of parenting as an environmental contribution, but there might be like very heritable traits that a child has, like for example ADHD is very heritable, and so there might be aspects of that trait that are actually influencing what we would typically think of as their environment, and so we're looking for evidence of that. So we looked at the genetic and environmental contributions on that relation between parenting and child psychopathology.
So, hello, my name is Nicole Taylor, and my honors thesis was titled Depressive Symptoms and Drinking to Cope in Relation to Alcohol Use Outcomes among White and Black or African American college students. Basically, there's a lot of research showing that racial and ethnic minorities are more likely to have negative alcohol use outcomes long term, in spite of reporting lower alcohol use. So there's not a ton of research that shows why. They haven't really figured it out yet. So looking at depressive symptoms and drinking to cope was kind of one theory that we put in to see could this account for it. It didn't really. Our study showed it did not really account for that difference, but now we know to look elsewhere.